Hello and welcome to another episode of the 60 podcast. My name is Tom Campbell. It's great to have your company. Joining me as always, Damien Seabolt. Seabs, how are you, mates?
Yeah, good, Tom.
Let's get into a couple of bits of news from the day first. Two notable ones, a couple of centres, a couple of the best centres in the game. Joey Manu looks like he's off to France at the end of the year, off to French rugby. Not the first, won't be the last, but will certainly be a loss.
Yeah, mate, it was surprising, actually. I didn't see that one coming. Obviously, it's got a lot to do with the centre that they've got coming across from the Wallabies. His name escapes my mind at the moment, but
that's a brutal one.
They'd be paying decent money to him. Look, I've never seen him play rugby, so I wouldn't know if he's any good at league, but Joey Manu's a huge loss to the Roosters and the sport, to be honest. He's a great player.
It makes you wonder how many clubs went after him to play fullback, like to come in and be the marquee guy.
Yeah, it's a really strange one, mate. Like, again, I'm assuming that he's, getting a fair bit of money going across there. Look, how many have lasted? Most elite rugby league players go across for the big money, and within 18 months, 2 years, they're back. Especially the ones that go across to France, they don't last too long. While it's, in theory, it's great, you get the good coin, but, you're not getting the footy, you're not in open space. It gets a bit boring.
Yeah, fair point. And Campbell Graham, the other one, looks like he's probably out for the year with that injury. It's a devastating moment for him in his career. He's about to enter the prime of his career, you would think. But for the Rabbitohs, geez, that's a big loss, man.
It is, mate. I think, I've seen reports anywhere between 6 months and 8 months. But let's say best case scenario, 6 months from now. What does that get him back in July? Then you've got to get your match fitness back. And to be fair, I don't think there's any guarantee that the Rabbits were going to be a top 8 side with him, let alone without him. So it's going to be a really interesting year for the Rabbitohs. And again, the whole concept of our pod today is around top 10 or top 10 players under pressure. And there is a couple of Rabbits floating around in my top 10. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting year for them.
Well, let's get straight into that. How did you find this exercise of coming up with 10 players that are going to be under the pump most for this year? Because I have to be honest, the Rabbitohs, I could have picked 5.
Yeah, definitely, mate. I found, and again, it's what do we mean by under the pump? Like, is it under the pump they're about to get sacked? Is it under the pump there's pressure on them? Is it under the pump because they're on good coin, so they've got to deliver? Is it under the pump because they're a marquee player at a marquee club? So if they don't play well every year, they're under the pump. So I've got a few. I've got a few guys that are probably will have question marks from yourself over why I've got them in my top 10. I've actually got a top 16, so I'm going to give some honourable mentions. But as I said to you before we started recording, I had 32.
Yeah, the whole league's under pressure, according to Seamus.
Yeah.
You're right. There's good pressure and there's bad pressure. There's pressure that's warranted due to performance, and then there's pressure that provides opportunity for players. And, my number 10, I suppose we'll just go off and start it. I know you haven't done yours in order, but maybe I can just go through my list, and then if you've got the same, just comment that. But we'll start off at my number 10, and that's Kobe Hetherington.
Okay.
And I good friend of the show, Kobe Hetherington, but I just think with Tom Flegler leaving the Broncos, and they relied so much on the power game of the forwards. There's no secret about that. They were one of the worst teams as far as where they started their sets, and they were in the top half a dozen for where they finished their sets. So naturally, Payne Haas, Pat Carrigan, Tom Flegler were able to get them going throughout the game. So now a third of that's missing in Tom Flegler, who went on to represent his country at the end of the year. Now, Kobe Hetherington, who I think has a ton of ability and is ready to go, this is his time, has an opportunity to step into those shoes and take that up. And this is not a bad pressure on Kobe. This is a great opportunity for him to really take that and really advance his career and have a probably the best year of his career so far. I don't think there's any doubt.
Yeah, look, yeah, it's an interesting one. Look, for mine, I would have thought, because I think Kobe will still be a bench player for the Broncos. So for mine, I reckon the pressure in the forward pack there is going to be just being piled on Payne Haas and Pat Carrigan and probably Jensen who starts now. I think that's where the pressure is going to come. But yeah, I see your point where you're coming from with that one. Do you have any other Broncos to add to your list?
No other Broncos for me. Kobe's the
So,
only one.
what, as the captain coach of the podcast, Tom, what would your thoughts be around me including all 16 of my, or 15 it might be? Because I've got a couple of Broncos and it'd be a good opportunity to talk about them at the same time as we've gone into the Broncos. Is that all right?
Yep, absolutely. Who you got?
Well, my two are Adam Reynolds.
Yep.
And Reece Walsh. They're the two big ones for me. Adam Reynolds, because the way he performed in the grand final, it was underwhelming. When you look across the field and see the way that Nathan Cleary iced that game and got Penrith home when they had no right to be in it, let alone win it, and then how well his offside at Ezra Mann went, I think there's a fair bit of pressure on Reynolds. He's made it pretty clear that he wants to keep playing. He wants an extra year after this year at least. So the pressure's on him. It's going to be interesting to see whether he can perform. With guys with age on board and a history of leg injuries, they can fall off the cliff pretty quickly. So it'll be just interesting to see where that one goes. And my other one's Reece Walsh for obvious reasons. I think everyone will agree that whilst he had a couple of magical moments in the grand final, he was pretty ordinary when it comes to fundamental fullback play and positioning where you should be, getting the defensive line set, and also putting yourself in a position to get the footy. So he needs to obviously be better at that. And while it's not second year syndrome, he's in about his fourth year now. That was his breakout year. That was the I've arrived. Look how good I am, which he is, and he's a superstar. But now he's got to do it again. So they're the two guys from the Broncos for me.
And my number 9 is very much along the same lines as Adam Reynolds, and that's Shaun Johnson. The Warriors were so reliant on Shaun Johnson last year, and for him to have the year that he did was very much an anomaly of football careers. To have a career year at that stage after the injuries that he's had was quite remarkable. So
he's a former Golden Boot winner, though.
He is, but their reliance on him and to stay healthy is immense. So, and they do have Roger Tuivasa-Sheck back there, but he's going to play center. At least he's going to start the year at center. So the pressure is still on Shaun Johnson to be the chief guy and pull the strings in the team. And so his health really dictates how they'll go for the year.
I flirted with the idea of Shaun Johnson, but I left him out of my 32 and my 16. The one warrior I did have was Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, because he's coming back. He's outside of Shaun Johnson last year. He is the face of rugby league in New Zealand. You can't say someone who played for the All Blacks failed, but essentially he didn't achieve what he wanted to achieve in rugby. So he's got a fair bit to prove in coming back. He's the player under most pressure for mine at the Warriors.
Any other Warriors while we're there?
No, that was it. I think, there's a few guys that certainly overperformed last year, but I didn't have the expectation on them. So, yeah, I think, and again, we'll get into some season previews with each club, but I don't expect much out of the Warriors anyway. So,
no other Warriors for me. We'll move on to number 8, Jamal Fogarty. And this one, I feel for Jamal, seriously.
Yeah.
He's a bit of a lone ranger at the Raiders at the moment with their spine. The entire success of that team will go through Jamal Fogarty and how well he plays. If he plays poorly, they are no chance. That is how it's going to go.
Yeah, that's right. Again, he's overachieved in his career for me. He's certainly got the most out of himself and probably more than what most people expect. I think it's a tough year for the Raiders coming up. They've got Tarpany. I'm sure Papali'i will continue to to provide something, but outside of Tarpany, Papali'i, and every now and again Horsburgh, there's not a great deal there to get off the back of with the Raiders.
Number 7 for me is Tyrell Sloan. To me, this is really make or break time for Tyrell Sloan. Like, we're going to the Super League or we're going to be a consistent first grader here. And mate, I think he would kill it in the Super League just quietly. He'd be electric. But
he would.
But a different coach now. There's no excuses really, and I'm not saying that they have to win every game and he has to be man of the match every game. But we need to see some serious improvements here very quickly.
Well, if Bevan French can be a man of steel, or else Sloan can, because pardon me, French doesn't like to defend, and Sloan doesn't like to defend, and there's a reason that Hook, held him back for so long because he just wasn't ready. I don't know if he is ready yet. He's a good player, there is a good player in there, but yeah, I didn't even contemplate Tyrell Sloan. He doesn't actually. I think he'll be lucky to be in there 17.
Fair enough.
I'm being a bit dismissive today, aren't
I? Everyone's
either, I like this, but
everyone's either rubbish or under the pump.
Yeah.
Number 6, Hamali Olakau'atu. Signed a big extension with Manly. I've got really high expectations for Manly this year. I think they have top 4 potential. You sign the big extension, pressure automatically comes with it. And he needs to now be consistently one of the best back rowers in the game on the contract that he's on. That is what he's paid to do. And that's it.
That's right. But again, I think he probably was last year. So he's just got to do, for me, he's just got to do what he did last year. And he was a threat every time he touched the footy. He was Manly's top 3 or 4 players every time he took the field. One of the best back rowers in the comp. He's just got to do it again.
I will say on Manly, I had 2 other names sort of half circled, and that was Josh Schuster, and the other one was Taniela Paseka. Taniela Paseka, for me, for Manly to be a top 14 this year, they need either Sipley or Paseka to stand up and be an elite middle forward, and for me, that's Paseka. And so if he's able to do that, then there's no reason why they can't make top 4.
So that's the only Manly guys you contemplated?
Yeah, I think so. Okay,
because I've got Luke Brooks on my list because whilst he's leaving the atmosphere, that was clearly toxic, and he needed the change, and everything says that he should perform this year. He's got the shackles off him. He's got Cherry Evans to steer the ship. He's got strike everywhere on that field. But there's a difference between, in theory, it should happen and it physically happening. So Luke Brooks is the guy under the most pressure for me at Manly. He has to perform. There's no excuses. If he doesn't perform this year, his NRL career is done. He's going to go to the Super League.
Yeah.
Because you can't be $1 million half and play your whole career and not play a game. Every one of his mates that moved on to a different club became an Origin player immediately and played finals immediately. When you look at Tedesco, Woods, and Moses.
Yeah, fair point. In
saying that, so
I was just going to say, in saying that, yeah, fair enough. In saying that, though, I do think Luke Brooks will have a good year. I would be stunned if he didn't. Like, he's set up for the best situation of his career by a country mile. It's not even close. So I'd be
injury's
stunned.
the only thing, isn't it? That might hamper him. Like, it should be the only thing that hampers him.
Yeah, exactly. Moving on, number 5, I've got Christian Welch from the Storm. You'll find no bigger fan of Christian Welch than myself over the years. But let's look at reality here. He's been dropped from the Storm leadership group. His form has gone down over the last 12 months, and fairly or unfairly due to injury. It's just a fact of life. He got dropped from the State of Origin team last year. Is he on the outer of Melbourne? Let's be honest, probably. So the fact that he's been dropped from the leadership squad certainly screams alarm bells to me. He's got to find some form this year, particularly with Melbourne's middles. He's
aging, and Melbourne's middles are underwhelming, but it's a good little segue because the guy that's replaced him as captain is the guy under most pressure for me at Melbourne, Harry Grant. I think since Origin, let's be honest, his form was poor. The finals, when we expected him to, shake it off and find a gear, again, he was poor. And now all of a sudden he's captain. So there's a lot of pressure there. I think he'll handle it easy and he'll have a great year. But if they don't start the season well, and if he doesn't go back to the Harry Grant that we're used to seeing every week, it's going to be interesting.
Absolutely. Moving on to number 4, the first of the South's players, Jack Whiten. South saw Jack Whiten as what they needed to get over the hump. They've been to a grand final, they've been a couple of prelims in the past few years, and then they had a dreadful fall off last year. But obviously, they see Jack Whiten as the man to take them to the promised land. So you can't sign a big contract for that and no pressure comes along with it. You are the guy they're looking to get you over the hump.
Yeah, so I get that. And I didn't have him in my top 32, pardon me, almost 16 or 10, but I do understand what you're saying. The guy that got him there is my most under pressure player at the Rabbits, and that's Latrell. Latrell got what he wanted. He always gets what he wants. Latrell is a superstar. He's elite. He's one of the best players in the comp, one of the best players I've ever seen. But he's got to perform all the time. He can't be suspended all the time. He can't be throwing a turn when it's, a big moment and missing semi-finals, throwing a turn and not getting what he wants. So he doesn't train properly, whatever is going on there. And I've heard plenty of whispers. And now he's got what he wants by getting one of his best mates across, and they're paying him a fortune when they had outside backs coming out of their Shaminda. They needed a middle.
Yeah.
And they got Jack Whiten. Jack Whiten's great. Jack Whiten will perform. He'll earn his money. But
let's park Latrell. Let's park Latrell because Latrell will make a return to this list a little bit later on.
Okay. Have you got any other Rabbits to make a return or make an entry?
No other Souths, but the notable mentions are Cody Walker for obvious reasons. The other one,
pretty
Cam
much
Murray.
All of the above. Yeah.
The other one, Cam Murray, and
that's interesting.
Cam Murray is phenomenal. Cam Murray is phenomenal. There is no doubt. One of the premium forwards of the game.
He just needs to keep doing what he does.
My God, if they lose Cam Murray, they could just capitulate.
Oh, they go nowhere near the top 8 if Cam Murray's out.
Exactly. He is so vital to them. You're right about Jack White, and they needed a middle. A couple of weeks later, Adam Fanua-Blake was available. Are you telling me if they had their time again, they wouldn't have rather go down that route?
100%. But again, now they'll look at it and go, gee, lucky we got Whiten with Campbell Graham out for the year.
That is a good point. However, Campbell Graham and Jack Whiten that different at centre? I personally don't think so. So we'll park Latrell for a second. Latrell will make a return very shortly. Number 3 for me, Dylan Brown. Dylan Brown missed a lot of time last year. Parramatta had a shocker. He owes them. He owes them a big year.
Yeah, I got Dylan Brown on my list. He's the only player from Para that I had in my list. For obvious reasons, he missed time through suspension, on-field and off-field dramas that he had. When he plays, Para are so much better. Moses is so much better because he's got someone to help him out. Dylan Brown's an elite half. He's one of the top 10 halves, and that's 5'8" or halfbacks in the comp. So he's got to stay on the field. When he's on the field, he performs. I don't really remember him having too many bad games. There's games where he's not winning the game on his own, but every time he's on the footy field, he is a very good footballer. So he's got to be on the field. He can't be suspended. He can't be playing up. He's got to get it right.
Yeah, owes them a big year, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Number two, Sam Walker.
Yeah.
Sam Walker. The Roosters must have a good year. There is no ifs and or buts. They should, in my opinion, they should be premiership favourites with this team that they've got. If not, a close second. And to me, them and Penrith are the standout premiership favourites going into the year. If the Roosters have another year like last year, they'll be all sorts of trouble because we had high expectations going into last year. They're better this year.
And the year before.
Yeah, they're better now. Yeah.
The big time, mate. Sam Walker's the biggest player under pressure there. I contemplated Teddy because, again, he's the captain, he's the fullback, he's one of the marquee players. But Teddy copped so much crap last year that was unwarranted in my mind. if you went and if you go back and watch the games, Teddy was never worse than a 7 out of 10. He might not have been 9 or 10 out of 10 winning games like he has in the past, but he's such a consistent performer. So I removed Teddy from my 32, which is where he was to start with. But Sam Walker with a bullet. He's the big one for me there. He's got to perform. They've let so many good players go, so many good halves go to have this bloke there. And at the moment, it hasn't happened. So it's going to be interesting.
And people might ask, okay, well, what's the difference between a Sam Walker and a Lachlan Ilias example? Why are we excusing Lachlan Ilias? I'm not exactly excusing Lachlan Ilias, but the fact of the matter is that's the point. They have let players go to keep Sam Walker, and also they've invested a lot in him.
So did Rabbit. So Rabbit's let Adam Reynolds go to
the money that they're on is not comparable.
But the difference for me is that Lachie Ilias doesn't have the Fox Sports cheer squad, Gordon Tallis with his pom-poms because he's mates with his dad, carrying on saying how good Sam Walker is. And then obviously it's on every show 3 times a week. So that's when the momentum builds, and they've let Mitchell Pearce go. You know, they had Flanagan and they signed Flanagan up. Now, again, I think we probably all agree that Flanagan's underwhelming, but they signed him up. He was the next big thing on a 3-year deal, 4-year deal. All of a sudden, a couple of games in, they let him go. They haven't re-signed Keary because they see Sam Walker as the option there. Every time that the half that's gone to the Dogs, or names escape me, utility.
Oh, Hutchison.
Hutchison, every time he played, they were a better footy side. They've let him go. Sandon Smith, when he came in, they turned their season around. He's gone back to reserve grade. So I hope Sam Walker comes good. I really do. Because he's got the skill set to be such an entertaining player. He's got every ability under the sun. But you need to put it together.
The time is now for Sam Walker, because he will never, in my opinion, have a squad this talented around him. Like, it's go time. They're losing Joe Manu, losing Suoliti, losing all these players at the end of the year. Now is the year. 2024 is the year for them.
He's also coming into season 4, isn't he? Like, yes. I think people forget that.
Yep, exactly.
He's a young bloke still. Yeah, he's got 4 years experience.
Yeah. Number 1, Latrell. I don't know how it's not. Latrell has missed big moments for South throughout his entire tenure there. He got suspended for an entire grand final run by knocking out Joe Manu just before the finals. He's been injured at certain stages around finals, and last year they didn't even make it. I'm not sure if there's a player, and he's fantastic. Like, there's a reason why the pressure is on him, because he's good. If he wasn't good, there'd be no pressure. I don't think there's a player that owes their club more than Latrell Mitchell. In my opinion, if he plays that grand final against Penrith, when Penrith win their first, they are premiership winners.
Yeah. If he keeps his cool, basically leading into every final series, Rabbits in a position to win. He's so good. When he's concentrating and he's on and he wants to win, he's almost unstoppable.
Exactly.
I think you've said everything, and I mentioned him before, so I agree totally. So that's your number 1. So there's a few guys that
notable
that
mentions?
we didn't bring up. Yeah, notable mentions, or a couple of these actually would slip into my top 10. I'm going to start up north and work my way through. So the Cowboys got through this unscathed, and they shouldn't have, because they're seriously under the pump. There's something doesn't smell right up there to me. I don't know what it is, but Scott Drinkwater's definitely one player that needs to perform. He can't just be good once every 3 weeks. He's got to be more consistent. Jason Taumalolo, he's under the pump. He apparently found out that he wasn't captain anymore by other guys being announced as captain. So again, something's not right there. I'd expect a big year out of him, and if not, I don't know what they're going to do. It's either him or Peyton. Fafita, he's coming up to a contract year. Again, I thought Fafita was the best he's ever been the first 12 to 15 rounds of this season, and then whether it was injury or not, he really fell away towards the back end of the year. I think it's time now that Fafita's 23, 24 years old this year. It's time to get a full consistent year out of it. Then we move to Felice Kafusi and Anthony Milford. Anthony Milford is playing for his career. If he doesn't do something this year, that's it. He'll be lucky to get a Super League deal. I expect to see him a fair bit for the Capras in the Q Cup. So, you know, that's where I see Milford being. But again, he's still got to perform there. He can't come back and play within himself or stand back and wait for things to happen. Kafusi, for every reason that you outlined with Latrell, I'll put that on Kafusi. Kafusi's got to stop being suspended. He's got to stop taking blokes' heads off. Yes, he's an intimidator and that's his role. But for the last 5 or 6 years, it's borderline a liability because of the amount of times he gets suspended or put in the bin. So they're the two big ones for me at the Dolphins.
Fair enough.
They were my honourable mention.
Honourable mentions for the top 10 or top 32 players.
Oh, I've got 3 more as well.
Yeah.
Ponga, make sure his head's right. He doesn't get a concussion. And Hastings and Gamble. They're big ones as well.
Yep, fair enough. That is the 60 podcast. Steve, thanks for your time, mate.
Thanks, mate.
It's been another episode of the 60 podcast. Don't forget to like the Facebook page and subscribe on the YouTube channel, and that is full time.